very warm welcome to everyone to Wellbeing Champion Checklist today. I would like to start this wellbeing event by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land from wherever you are dialing from today. I am dialing in from the land of the Bunurong and the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. I'm currently on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. Good morning to Mel from the Hunter Valley Awabakal lands, probably pronounced incorrectly. Thank you, Mel, for joining us. We pay our respects to elders past and present. I also acknowledge anyone on the call with lived experience or caring for those with mental ill health. Welcome to everyone who has just joined this session today. My name's Carli Phillips. I'm the CEO of Corporate Wellbeing Hub. I am a wellbeing keynote speaker. I am a lead researcher for both federal and state government in wellbeing projects, looking at particular industries that need a bit more attraction and retention and trying to boost wellbeing for a couple of industries in Australia. I'm a nutritionist and I'm a mental health first aider, but today I'm here as your facilitator to take you through a wellbeing champion checklist. Just because we're online doesn't mean we can't interact. So I invite you to be part of our live polls that I'll be putting up throughout the session. Please use the chat box for your questions and I will answer them all. I've got a bit of time at the end, but I'll try and answer them as we go through as well. And just so you know, I'm going to give you the recording of this entire wellbeing event. I'm going to give you all of the slides and I'm going to give you the checklist and the template that we go through today. So don't worry too much about taking notes or missing things. I'm going to send you absolutely everything that I talk about and we share today. So just use this time to interact and get to know some of the other people on the call. That's always a bit of a bonus for these sessions. In this hour we have together, the four most important things I want to share with you are an expression of interest with selection criteria for how you go about setting up your wellbeing champions. Then the roles and responsibilities, and I'm going to highlight what not to include, how to launch your wellbeing champions in amongst your wellbeing program, and then sharing of success stories. So that is the flow or the agenda for today. Now, why on earth am I a wellbeing champion and teaching other wellbeing champions? You can see here there's a super grainy old photo of me delivering one of my very first wellbeing talks. And at that talk, I got up and shared a message about if you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. And I was trying to share with the audience a campaign of I'm here and how we can all support each other. Now, the reason I'm sharing this is because in that first photo, which is super grainy because one of my friends was taking that from their phone from the very back of the room, I'm actually speaking in an auditorium with about 200 of my peers there. This is when I was back in corporate in pharma. And I was not in a wellbeing lead role. I was in a sales role. I had nothing to do with health and wellbeing except that I had just had my own lived experience of burning out from caring for my partner who was living with severe depression and trying to parent two little kids and trying to renovate a house and trying to work and trying to study at night. And when I reached complete physical and mental burnout, now for me, that came in the form of pneumonia and a heart infection and a mental breakdown. And for my work, that meant I did not return to work for 3 months. And when I came back to work, boy, did I have a burning desire, not just to protect my own mental health and well-being, but to help others. And so I just put my hand up and I said, I want to share my story. I want to stand up in front of all these people. And I was not a public speaker by any stretch of the imagination. I want to share my story to make sure people prioritize their well-being. And that day, we did that on World Mental Health Day many, many years ago. That was the most meaningful and impactful day of my life. And I'm not talking about hitting sales targets, winning awards. Like for me to be able to get up there and share my story and motivate other people. What happened after that is I was stopped by so many people in the office who said, I've never had anyone else in my team disclose mental illness to me before. And I have now got people speaking openly about their struggles and about how they can protect their mental health and well-being. It was an absolute turning point for me where I said, I want to stand up and I want to be a wellbeing champion. And I have not looked back. I have been speaking louder and at bigger stages ever since this very first day where I stood up in my work and said, I am here for you. I want to share that story as an inspiration to everyone on the call, no matter what role you're in. You might be a CEO, you might be a VA, you could be absolutely any role in any industry. We all still have a responsibility to stand up and say, hey, I want to make a difference to health and well-being, particularly of my peers at work. So that is why we're talking about well-being champions. I come to you today as someone who has gone through that experience as an employee, someone who stood up and said, I'm a wellbeing champion, but also as a lead researcher. So I researched mental health strategic planning in my master's, and I now lead research for federal and state government in this space. And so what I know about wellbeing champions is there are two different approaches. There is the top-down approach for wellbeing at work, where we have got leaders and C-suites and CEOs who are absolutely bought in. I also know many people, many companies contact me and say, I am banging my head against a brick wall. This is a huge obstacle for me, is trying to get leadership buy-in. And I always say to them, go ground up. Start from the ground up with your wellbeing champions, and the groundswell will grow. And you become unnoticeable. The noise becomes so loud, and people start talking about it so much that it really starts to get the attention of your leaders. Of course, we also have a massive very strong business case now with lots of evidence, and you can find all of that on my website to build a business case. But I 100% believe this ground up approach of wellbeing champions is a fantastic place to start and to continue with engagement. So let me hear from you. Do you have wellbeing champions at work? Can you please grab your mobile phone and just scan the code that you can see on the screen? And just let us know, yes or no, if you already have wellbeing champions at work. It doesn't have to be in a formal process. You might have people that are already just kind of active in that space, or you might not. Just click the blue button. It'll give us a response as to where we're at. Maybe you've already got wellbeing champions, and maybe you just want to improve and make some tweaks to what you already have. And that's great if you're here for that reason. If you haven't, you'll be able to take this entire checklist with you and you'll be able to build this from scratch. So this will be a great resource for you. Have a look at that. We're about half and half. Do we have wellbeing champions at work? So let's dive in to what we need to know when we're looking at the template. So I'm going to give you these specific things that you can download and you can take away with you today. We're going to start with the expression of interest with the selection criteria. Now, what I'm about to put up on the screen, I'm going to apologize for. It has a lot of writing on it, but I've highlighted in bigger text what we need to put in each section. And just as a reminder, I am sending you all of these slides. I will send you a copy of the template, and you will also get a recording. So don't worry about all the little minuscule words. If you can just listen for the time being and then download it, you'll actually be able to literally copy this text into your own selection criteria. So here we go. Step one. This is the template I'm going to send you. Step one is the expression of interest form. When you put this expression of interest form out to all of your employees, It's absolutely great to be motivational and say, would you like to be a wellbeing champion? Are you passionate? Would you like to spread the word? That is pretty enticing. But you want to make sure you are selecting the right people. So the next section should say, is this you? And you want to specify, are you well respected by others, well connected and highly influential? Do you have capacity for about 2 hours a month? Do you role model and prioritize your own well-being, or are you recovering well on the road to recovery? And are you confident in encouraging and motivating your peers? Because we want them to promote and advocate well-being in our workplace. Now, let me just tell you why I believe it's really important to put this selection criteria in the expression of interest. I have met with a lot of organisations who have come to me with concerns about either selecting wellbeing champions or selecting mental health first aid officers. And they'll say, hey, when we put out an expression of interest or we ask for people to volunteer or perhaps come and do some training, sometimes the people who need the most help put their hand up. So they might be struggling with a mental illness and want to learn more about mental health first aid. Or they might be really struggling with their own health and well-being and they want to put their hand up and learn a bit more, but maybe they're not right in the right place themselves to be doing that. Maybe they haven't got capacity to contribute the hours. Maybe they're not well connected or influential. So the selection criteria is something that you need to filter out all of the submissions with to make sure you can find exactly the right people to be wellbeing champions in your workplace. So what you end up with at the end is a small group of wellbeing champions who are selected. They're a volunteer role in addition to their current role. Their responsibility is just to promote and advocate your organisation's existing wellbeing offerings. And I recommend a tenure of 1 to 2 years. I used to say 1 year because people get restless and people like to move around and people kind of lose interest in projects after about a year and they kind of stop coming to meetings and they want to do something fresh. But what I've noticed with wellbeing is the first year they're really into it and they come to everything and they might be a bit nervous about how to actually do things. Once they've had their first round of World Mental Health Day, Are You OK Day, Women's Health, Men's Health, they've got a really good feel of it, their confidence actually grows. And in the second year, that can be a beautiful time where they've kind of grown into the role and feeling much more confident to do a fantastic job engaging. So 1 to 2 years is my recommended tenure for this role. That's the expression of interest. If you've got questions about EOI or selection criteria, pop them in the chat box and I'm really happy to answer those. The selection process, once you've closed your submissions, should be managed by your senior leaders. So that could be an HR director, your work health and safety lead, perhaps you've got a wellbeing lead in a formal role in your workplace, and they should review all of these submissions. Apply the selection criteria to every submission and make sure that your wellbeing champions you are selecting are widely dispersed across the organisation. So you do want to make sure you've got champions, if it's outdoor, indoor, at least in both of those groups. Or if you've got different sites, you definitely want to have one champion at each site because we want to do on-site activation, right? We want to make sure we've got people on the ground, bringing people into your space so that we can start to really bring things alive there. I'm going to show you a couple of case studies in a minute of companies that have done this really well already. Good question, Annette. How many wellbeing champions per employee? I don't think I would give you a percentage, but I've got 2 case studies coming up now which have got different numbers. So it might depend on your industry. I'll jump into those case studies in just a second to demonstrate that. Step 3 once you have done your selection process, is to start your Wellbeing Champion kickoff meeting. So you want to bring everyone together either online or on site. You want to do a big congratulations and welcome to being a Wellbeing Champion. Get them to introduce themselves, do a bit of show and tell why they're into wellbeing. And then you want to clarify the roles and responsibilities. And that is to make sure we encourage and motivate our peers to utilise the resources. What you want to do in this meeting is share your wellbeing program for the year that you have already created with your champions so that they can see what you've got in store. And you want to set up frequent meetings, perhaps quarterly or perhaps monthly, depending how many wellbeing resources and events you've got scheduled for the year. You want to make sure that they are able to do brainstorming sessions. So this is one of the most important things. We're going to talk about this when we look at roles and responsibilities in a minute. But when you bring your champions together, brainstorming on how to engage and motivate their peers to participate in your program is the most important action you want your champions to take. They might be able to help you create a communication plan, sharing lovely stories, getting some of the feedback, helping to motivate other people to come along. That should be the primary focus for when you get together, is brainstorming. How do we engage people into what we've got planned? And then when you launch, which is step 4, if you can at all have an on-site wellbeing event to launch, that is by far the most fabulous way to do it because it creates so much excitement and lovely face-to-face connection. So if you're going to launch your wellbeing program, the first on-site event that you do, please bring your champions along and introduce them to everyone. If you decide to do it online, that's okay as well. Still introduce your wellbeing champions. You want to make sure everyone in the wider organisation knows who these people are, because I'm going to show you their roles and responsibilities in a second. Here's one example which will help to answer your question. This is a case study from the Australian Grand Prix Corporation. They have got about 100 employees in one office in Melbourne, and they're an event-based company, and they bring in lots and lots of subcontractors and providers for their events, but their sole business is about 100 employees. And they have 6 wellbeing champions, which is very generous in my opinion. What they did is they followed my wellbeing champion template. They put out an expression of interest, and they very generously said, we are going to put every single wellbeing champion into Champion Wellbeing with Unwavering Confidence, which is our training program that we run for brand new wellbeing champions. And so what happened is they had 6 people that they selected. 6 of them all came across into our program last year. They all completed the training program, and they are now up and running with confidence. They are creating their own wellbeing programs in-house, and they have come from scratch. So it's such a great story of a really strong focus and investment on wellbeing. First of all, to have 6 champions, that's a lot for 100 people. Also to invest them all into training, but gosh, the results have been well worthwhile. So that's just one example. There's another case study I want to share with you. This one comes from Burwood Council. They have got approximately, I'm going to say 300 employees, and they put 7 wellbeing champions in place. Again, they did the wellbeing champion expression of interest. They ran their training a little bit differently. They did on-site training. So I actually went out to the council and we did a wellbeing champion kickoff meeting where I took them step by step through their roles and responsibilities, how to be a role model, all the things we needed for wellbeing champions. And they then took that information and they then just started running monthly meetings and managing the wellbeing program themselves. So sometimes you'll find companies, HR or wellbeing leads will run it. Some of these case studies, we've actually got wellbeing champions themselves running it. So there's a couple of different ways you can do it. Additionally, they also put all 7 wellbeing champions straight into our training program. Champion Wellbeing with Unwavering Confidence. So we had 7 champions from Burwood Council, we had 6 champions from Australian Grand Prix Corporation, and we had other local council champions and other corporate champions come and join us last year. So that was our first year. That was our pilot year of running the training program. We ran 2 cohorts across the year, collected lots of feedback, and we're about to launch our next one for 2025. So that's 2 case studies and 2 examples of companies that have started with the EOI, done some training, and then gone on to build their wellbeing program. I want to dive into roles and responsibilities because this is where I sometimes see it go wrong. Here are the things that I do not want you to include for your wellbeing champions. These 3 steps that you can see on the screen, these are how to create your wellbeing program from scratch. I'm going to take you through some of these steps so that you know what they are, but just to do your audit, to customize your program, and then to do some program evaluation and measure your metrics. That all should be the responsibility of 1 or 2 people in your organization. That person might be a wellbeing lead at your workplace. That person might be a work health and safety manager who's taken the responsibility of the wellbeing program. It might be, and commonly is, an HRD, or if your company is quite small, it could be a general manager or one of the directors. It is their responsibility to essentially create your wellbeing program from doing an audit, customizing your program, and then measuring the outcomes. What I want your wellbeing champions to do is brainstorm ideas to engage your peers, advocate and promote your wellbeing program, motivate peers to engage in the program, and share or collect and share success stories. Now, why do I differentiate them like that? Because often I see wellbeing champions come together as a group. And the purpose of that group, if you put the purpose or the objective for that group to be, okay, you're in charge of the wellbeing program. You go ahead and create it, write your strategy, work out delivery, work out funding, implement everything, measure everything. I'll tell you what happens. Too many people in that group to make decisions. So there can be lots of different opinions and ideas, and you end up having I saw one company do meetings for a year and not implement anything because there was just too many people involved. Or you have so many responsibilities in that champion group that they go, you know what, this is too hard. This is not even my job. And they just ditch the volunteer job altogether and they just go back to focusing on their formal job. So we do not want to overwhelm your wellbeing champions with too many responsibilities. What we really want them to do is make sure they know how to engage their peers. That is the number 1 priority. So I want to pop out a live poll now, and I want to ask you this question. How can we best engage our peers? So right now, I want you to put yourself in the position of, okay, I'm a wellbeing champion. Just scan that code on the screen. Oh, yes, it has. I have been asked to motivate my peers into how I can get them to come along to our wellbeing things. What ideas do you have for engagement? Let's have a look and see what some of the answers are. Role model, 100%, it's so important. Inclusion, yep. Stories, yes. So the stories can come, we will talk about it in a sec, but the stories can come from photos, videos, examples of people looking after their health and well-being. Communication, yeah. I'm glad someone put communication there, because sometimes I see companies launch wellbeing programs and they do the launch or the calendar and then they leave it. And I say to them, why did you launch it and leave it? They go, oh, I didn't really think about it. The communication plan across the year is absolutely critical. Examples, yes, fantastic. Fun, yes. Experiences, so good. So all of these things are examples of ideas in your brainstorming session that your team might be able to come up with when they come together to do their first brainstorming session. This brings us to the halfway point of our wellbeing event for today. And it also brings us to the end of the checklist. So everything I have talked about so far, doing your expression of interest, doing your selection criteria, doing your kickoff meeting, it is all listed in the template. So you can just, when you get my email, copy and paste and go ahead and launch within your own organization. What I want to show you now are the steps that your wellbeing lead or your HRD or your GM will need to do to create your wellbeing program, because you want to launch your wellbeing champions at the start of your wellbeing program, ideally at the start of the year. Maybe it's not going to fall right at the start, but that is the ideal time to do it. So here's an example wellbeing events calendar. What I've done in this example calendar is I've just popped some of the national and the international health awareness dates, and I've matched them to example talks, example resources that you could implement and deliver at your workplaces. Now have a look over at Q1, February. I don't do anything in January, that's just a write-off. I always start in February. And I always start by launching the wellbeing program. I want it to be a bang. I want it to be positive and exciting, and I want to bring my wellbeing champions in. So that's why I've got the photo there. I want our wellbeing champions to be part of the launch and really bring a lot of excitement to the start of the year. Once you have done your launch, I want to show you how you would actually build your program from scratch. Now, just as a reminder, this is not what you're going to ask your wellbeing champions to do, but if you are leading wellbeing and you are writing your wellbeing program from scratch, all of the research that I have done shows data-driven wellbeing programs get a much higher ROI and VOI, so value on investment, because we are customizing to meet the needs. It's a very important place to start. Even to the point where sometimes I will have people in HR or people in people and culture. They'll make an appointment with me, we'll jump on a call together, and they'll say, hey, we want to do a wellbeing program. We want to talk about burnout. We want to talk about sleep. We want to talk about nutrition. I'll say, great. Why have you chosen those topics? And they'll say, oh, they're just the ones my colleague and I got together. We had a chat. We had a look at the menu. They're the ones we think will be good. So what we're then doing is we're just assuming, without asking, we are making an assumption about what our employees want without looking at the data. It is a way to throw your money straight down the drain. It is a way to create wellbeing programs and have nobody turn up because they are not aligned to the needs of your people. So please, please, please make sure you follow collecting the data first. So do some sort of wellbeing audit. We run these external wellbeing surveys here at Corporate Wellbeing Hub. We collect wellbeing indicators, we collect mental and physical health risks, workplace wants and needs, and work out your communication plan. You then get a wellbeing report, which has got all of your wellbeing metrics in it. So you've got your raw data, you've got insights, you've got all the Australian guideline benchmarks, and that'll be highlighted in red and green. So if it's in green, it's above the benchmark. If it's in red, it's at risk. So you can see the health risk identification really easily. And then you get a wellbeing strategic plan. So I will write you an action plan, a strategic plan in a draft form, and it is customized from your data. And you also get a wellbeing budget business case. So wherever you're pulling your data from, make sure it's current and make sure it's got a really good mix of employees across your industry. Then what you would do is customize. So jump into, I've got a health dates calendar on the website. I can send it to anyone who needs it. This is all the national and international health dates for 2025. What I would recommend you do once you have your data and you have picked the most important, the most top requested or in-demand topics for your employees, jump into this calendar and just find the dates that align to those needs. So again, don't be tempted to go, oh, that looks interesting, I might do bullying, or that looks interesting, let's do Youth Week. Go back to your data and let that be the data that informs your decisions as you go through. Thank you, Mel, for joining us. Julie, yes, I'll get the health dates calendar to you, no problem. Then once you've aligned to your dates, you will be in a position where you can start picking resources. So what I would recommend you do if you're just starting out for the first time in developing your wellbeing program is I would go to your current providers and I would ask them what they have available. So if you already have a contract with an EAP provider, most of those contracts include some training. Go and explore that contract and find out what is already included in your funding. Go and have a look at your insurer, see if you've got rebates or you've got free resources available to you. Grab all of those and pop those in your calendar. And then, as an example, here is our wellbeing menu. Go and have a look at some other providers and pick the topics that your employees have asked you for. Start with the highest in demand and the highest risks that you would like to work on. Yes, calendar is fine. Thank you, Pip. They are all on their way to you. As you then build your wellbeing program, this is just an example of a program stream that we would build. So this is an all employee wellbeing program. It goes through all the different life stages. So we've got men's health, we've got a women's midlife toolbox, we've got parent wellbeing, I've got an outdoor workers, I've got an indoor workers. Wellbeing shortcuts for the fast lane is in high demand, which tells me a lot about people sitting at desks. And we've now added in a transition to retirement. So it's kind of going right through all the different demographics of employees in your workplace. Or you might decide you want to do a leader wellbeing masterclass program. If you've got a lot of leaders that you really need to upskill to make sure they know how to have really good ways of working, understand themselves as a leader, talk about mental health and have safe conversations, you might decide you want to build a wellbeing program that looks like that. Then you want to do hyper personalized delivery. So please do not pick a type of delivery that is really not easily accessible for everyone. So you might be in a situation where people are coming to you at an office or at a depot or at a meeting place, and you can do on-site events. If you're not and you need to do online events, I would do a combination of a live online event and e-learning modules. Plus, I would supplement them with short video bites and one-pager resources. So having a multiple delivery model is much more successful than having a single delivery model. So I could just come and do an online event, just run one webinar like this. Employees would come along, they would hear the message, they would be motivated, then they'd say, I'll start tomorrow or I'll start on Monday, and by next week, they've forgotten all about it. So instead, what I would do is the online event, I would then send them a module that's got really short videos on it, I send out a one-page resource the following week. It's got the key messages, and we're keeping the conversation alive. So make sure you're picking the delivery that works best for your people. If you're doing a conference, a town hall, an all employee anything, these are fantastic places to deliver wellbeing messages to a larger audience. And then you want to make sure you get feedback data, whether it's polls, whether it's program evaluation, expressions of interest for future topics, and you keep moving that data into adjusting and modifying your program. So it is literally dynamic. Your program is alive and your program is flexible. And if you get to the middle of the year and you do an event and you collect feedback and 90% of people in there are saying, I need to learn about well-being shortcuts. You're like, right, let me just tweak the program. Let me add that in September somewhere. So we really want to make sure it's constantly responding to the data. Here is a case study example. This is another one of our clients. This is Nestle in Australia and New Zealand. They did the 3 steps. So they did the wellbeing audit. What we did with them, they're huge. They've got thousands of employees across Australia and New Zealand, is we built subcategories into the audit and they could select which site they work at. So we gave their wellbeing lead, who's based at the head office, we gave her the wellbeing audit. She sent it out to all employees. They did it site by site, which was pretty cool. So we had the little drop-down box, which site do you work at? And we could then run reports for each site. We could then run reports for the whole organisation. So their wellbeing reports came in different formats. And then we did a strategic plan. Nestle have decided this year to do a centralised wellbeing program. So the wellbeing lead at head office is going to do a centralised program that everyone can access, plus, this is really important, plus site-specific wellbeing events. So they have got wellbeing champions, one per site. So every depot, factory, production line that they have across Australia and New Zealand has one wellbeing champion. And they go to their audit and they click on their location and they go, right, here's our data for our site. What one thing do we want to activate here in addition to the centralised wellbeing program? What can we activate here that our people really need? So an example of that they're doing this year is they're doing a nutrition roadshow. And I'm going to go out and set up tables and activations and teach people about healthy eating, healthy drinking, energy drinks, alcohol, all the different obstacles people are struggling with. So that is how they have developed their whole program. They took each of their wellbeing champions. When people move out or move into roles, they put out their expression of interest for the wellbeing champion EOI. They suggest the Wellbeing Champion Unwavering Confidence training program. And what happens is about 2 or 3 Wellbeing Champions from Nestle pop into our training program each course as people start to move around the organisation. So it's a beautiful example of a well-established wellbeing program that is still current and that is dynamic and that is managed really well from their wellbeing lead at head office. Sharing success stories is a beautiful, fun, and really enticing way to encourage peer-to-peer engagement in your program. So one thing you can ask your champions to do is set up story collection. So you might do that through just having one person and having an email available, or you might have a digital notice board. You might have a portal where people can input photos or videos or stories or absolutely anything. It can be something tiny, something big. And what you want to do is make sure you are sharing those. So popping them on your digital notice boards, sharing them at meetings, popping them in your communication plan, because all of these things are repeating your well-being message. I know this is one of the most motivating things we can do as wellbeing champions. So getting people to feel really comfortable and safe to send in a photo and just 1 or 2 lines saying, hey, I'm leaving work at 3 o'clock. I'm picking up my kids. I'm going to sport. I'm then going to work for an hour at 7 o'clock tonight. This is showing workplace flexibility. This is really good for my health and well-being. It might be, hey, I started walking every lunchtime or before work, or I started a new routine for my sleep. I am now non-contactable after 5 p.m. That is my downtime. I'm going to bed early and I'm feeling so much more productive and better at work the next day. So tiny little things, but when your peers see that and they go, oh, hey, he's doing that, I could be doing that. It's such a beautiful way to motivate people to really uplift their own well-being. So that brings us right to the end of the checklist. The missing piece of the puzzle might be for you, well, if I've got wellbeing champions and they don't have any qualifications or they don't have any experience, they might actually put their hand up and say, yes, I want to do it, but they might not have the confidence to do that. So I'm really excited to be able to share with you today. We're moving into our second year of Champion Wellbeing with Unwavering Confidence. It is a training program that I am running. I'll probably run 2 cohorts this year. This is what some of our champions have said from our first program last year. Great way to learn about workplace wellbeing and to gather ideas from other workplaces. So they actually got together in breakout rooms and they shared experiences from their workplace, which was absolute gold. Thank you for this opportunity to learn and grow my skills and confidence. These skills are not just for work, but also for my personal life. Love that. It was easy to follow and loads of information, but very simplified. Interactions with other workplaces and sharing knowledge was good. What I liked most was having open conversations and discussions, implementing and rolling out the program. So this is cool. Rolling out the program has been highlighted as one of the things people enjoyed the most. There's a small assignment in this training program. And what the students have to do is create a pilot wellbeing event or a wellbeing resource. So it can be really small. It can be like a 1-page resource or a link to a video, or it can be like a whole event that you do. But it gives you a chance within the safety of the program to actually pilot and implement what you have learned and give it a shot. So I just love that they had a chance to be able to do that, and then they can come back to the group and talk about it and ask questions. So when we got to the end of each cohort last year, we asked our wellbeing champions to rate their knowledge across each of the different areas, and all 6 areas increased significantly in their knowledge and in their confidence. Their overall confidence in how to create a wellbeing program and be a wellbeing champion started down in the 50% and it ended at 92%. I nearly died when I saw that. Like, for people to leave after 6 weeks and say, my confidence is now at 92%, that just made my heart melt. So our next program, I would love you to come and join me. I'm kicking off this month. It's actually on the 25th of Feb. We are starting the program. Here's all the details for you up on the screen. It is 6 online modules, so you can dive in and have a look at the course whenever it suits you. It's all on demand. There's 6 live weekly workshops. I'm running them this time on a Tuesday morning. So it's going to be 6 weeks, so weekly consecutively just for 6 weeks, and that'll get you through all of your content in the first 6 weeks. The reason I've done that, I've made it really short, is because we are at the start of the year. So that means by the 1st of April, you are going to have completed all of your content, have the skills and the confidence to actually go ahead and implement this year. Instead of it taking a year to do and looking at next year, you can implement this year, which I just love. All the small discussion groups we're going to do in small breakout rooms. You can see from the testimonials, people just loved talking to each other. So we do 2 or 3 of those discussions in every workshop. There's a pilot assignment, there's 6 months of group coaching and ongoing support from the cohort and from myself. So that means over the rest of the year, you can implement, you can practice, you might have something you're struggling with, you can come back to the group coaching and ask questions. We can brainstorm, we can come up with solutions for you. Julie, the enrollment is per participant. Yeah, per participant. So the enrollment fee is $1,800 per person. $5 of that goes directly to Oz Harvest, and $5 goes a very long way. It provides 10 meals to people who need it most. So this year, CWH, we are very, very happy to be strengthening our partnership with Oz Harvest. They are nourishing our country, and we have promised to donate $5 for every enrolment to them. I'm also donating my time to Oz Harvest. I'm going to start facilitating some of their nutrition workshops and volunteering for them in my spare time, but really well aligned charity. So really happy to be working with them this year. I know there was a question on enrollment, so I just want to clarify that. So the enrollment is per person, so that's $1,800 per person. Honestly, 90% of our students just submit that. They get reimbursed for that from their workplace, or their workplace directly pays for that as a training, as an L&D, as a professional development program. So if you go in to enroll and you don't want to pop that on a credit card, but I can create you an invoice, very happy to do that. If you decide you want to pay for that yourself, you can actually claim that on your tax as a training and education. So that might be helpful as well. And by April, you will have done all the content. You will be ready to launch and super confident. And you've always got us here for coaching for another 6 months. So I'll be able to pop some coaching into the calendar for the rest of the year. And you can also book a one-on-one coaching session with me, because once you get out there and you start trying it and you start implementing, you might want to come back and have questions or have discussion. Open Q&A. I asked this at a talk and so many people put their hands up in my last audience. If you've got questions, please just use the chat. Pop in the chat box now any of your questions. We've actually got about 10 minutes or so, so I'm really, really happy to answer any of your questions about the Wellbeing Champion checklist, so specifically about setting up Wellbeing Champions, or you might have a question about creating the Wellbeing program itself, or about our training program. So any questions, pop them into the chat box. I'll leave you on this final screen so you can read all the info. Thanks for coming, Sandy. Pleasure to have all the info, and I will send all of this over to you. Does anyone have any questions in the last couple of minutes? Thank you, Julie. You've got 6 pillars of wellbeing, which you've devised on the back of the audit that you ran. I'm doing a soft launch this week. How do you sift the amount of resources? Do you mean like all of the different providers that are out there? Like, how do you find the right one? Yeah, kind of overwhelming, right? So how do I answer that in a succinct way? Absolutely start with the data. So just make it as simple and as succinct and as customized as you can. So try to avoid doing the kind of big, broad, kind of vague topics. Go really have a really good assessment and analysis of your data and find the highest risks and the highest in-demand topics that your employees have asked for. Now, you might have that information in your audit. You might have EAP top presenting issues. So you've got an EAP, which is great. Go and ask them for the report. Find out what the top presenting issues are. If you've got exit interviews, they are gold. Go and have a look at what people say as they're walking out the door. And if you've got any workers' comp claims, find out what the cause of those are. That'll give you a really clear picture of what the top things you then need to find are. If you've got your EAP and you're already contracted to them, I would start there. I would go and ask them, what do you have available in this top, let's say, 3 things that we want to focus on for this year? If they then do not have it, you can go out and explore to the broader market. So if you came to us and you said, do you have these 3 topics? I can let you know yes or no, or maybe we can do something bespoke for you. If you go out to any provider in the market, general rule of thumb when you're testing out providers, number one would be, do not lock into a year's program until you've done a pilot with them, because you do not know how well they fit, how that feels, how they are received by employees until you've done a test. So I would do one event or one resource to test them out first, get the feedback before you make a decision to lock in for any amount of time. Number two, ask about qualifications, ask about experience, ask about references. I am shocked how few people ask me about our qualifications and about our references. I can give you all of our facilitators' qualifications, experience, number of years in corporate, all of the references, all of the feedback that we get. People actually don't ask me for that. And I think that's a really important piece of information for you to have when you are picking resources, because I'm taking from that message, Julie, that it's kind of overwhelming. There's so much stuff out there. Like, how do you pick from all the different providers and all of the different resources? So find out the qualifications, find out the experience, find out the references, and then you can work out the funding piece. And I've got a couple of tricks about funding. One is fully funded, and I can write your business case for your financial directors. That's actually our next event. We're doing a wellbeing business case and buy-in. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You can also do subsidized, and you can do employee pay, which actually works really well because people like to come along to health and wellbeing checkups, skin checks, all sorts of things at work, when they have the convenience of having it during work time and in my workplace. Often they're happy to pay for it themselves if you cannot get the funding, just having the convenience. So there's lots of tricks we're going to talk about in the next webinar about the business case. Great, excellent. I hope did that answer your question, Julie? Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions before we close today's wellbeing event? Okay, big thanks for coming to join today. It was lovely to have you here on the call. I really hope it was helpful for you. I am going to send you the recording, all of the slides, and the template. If at any point you have a question, you are struggling, you're not sure about how to deliver, just shoot me an email. I'm really happy to give you a hand. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time. Bye.